You know, in Pokemon, there's just a lot of strange oversights that kind of leave players scratching their heads sometimes. Like, why is it that Mega Raichu can't be used in Pokemon Champions yet, but the Oranberry can? Yeah, man, I'm totally going to be using that. 10 HP recovery at level 50. Oh, it's almost as good as a single turn of leftovers. I swear, that thing is a hidden tutorial on how to not choose bad items. And a lot of you have failed the Shell Bell section of that tutorial. But beyond those more recent oversights, there's always been a number of Pokemon who seemingly can't learn moves that they logically should be able to. That's what I want to discuss today. We're going to explain why Snorlax can't Slack Off and why Terapagos can't Shell Smash, and even get into a few Pokemon who kind of undeservedly don't learn moves. While this video is mostly about Pokemon that should logically learn moves that just make sense and explaining why they don't learn those moves because it would just be unbalanced, I do want to include at the end of the video just moves that Pokemon should be able to learn, you know? So most of the video, Pokemon should be able to learn these moves, but they don't because it would be unbalanced. Rest of the video, moves that Pokemon should be able to learn, and they should because it would be balanced. And no, we're not going to talk about Grimmsnarl not getting Snarl or Growlithe not learning Growl. You can get your Pokemon Cocomelon from other channels. We are daytime TV here. Let's just get right into it. If you guys enjoy, leave a like, subscribe, check out the Patreon, become a YouTube channel member, hype the video, all of that. And hey, you definitely want to subscribe because at 300,000 subscribers, I'll be ranking every bench in Lumio City. Let's just begin. Let's begin with Snorlax not learning Slack Off. Snorlax is a Pokemon with some pretty incredible stats across the board. It has 160 HP, 110 attack, 65 defense, 110 special defense, and 30 speed. This has made it one of the greatest, bulkiest offensive Pokemon in the history of VGC. Whether it's running a curse set to set up, be extremely difficult to KO and score KOs with return, or if it's just belly drum and go. That being said, Snorlax has never had access to reliable recovery. The most reliable recovery that Snorlax has ever had access to are the Pinch Berries from Generation 7 combined with its ability Gluttony and the move Recycle. Snorlax was able to use the ability Gluttony, which activates berries 50% earlier, and the Pinch Berries such as the Wiki Berries and Figgy Berries to heal 50% of its HP whenever it dropped to 50% of its HP. Then by clicking Recycle, it effectively had Recover. It was just the move Recover, with a little bit of a caveat. If Snorlax had its berry knocked off, or if they used Bug Bite onto it or something, it would not be able to recover that HP ever again. Also, while moves like Recover or Slack Off would be able to heal you no matter what health you're at, if a Snorlax was sitting at 52% health, it would not be able to use Recycle to heal immediately. It would just get the berry back for when it drops below. That being said, Snorlax is a Pokemon with absurd bulk, and being a normal type means it only has one weakness in fighting types while being immune to ghost type moves. Snorlax also has access to great setup moves like Stockpile, which increase both of its defensive stats and make it a very difficult Pokemon to KO. If Snorlax had access to moves like Belly Drum, Curse, Stockpile, and reliable recovery in Slack Off, it would be a menace and an extremely difficult Pokemon for any team to deal with. That is why it doesn't have access to this move. It doesn't matter that it makes sense for it to be able to slack off, as that's all it really does all day. It's not going to get access to it, as that would just be broken. Rest is much more reasonable, as it is not only thematically appropriate for Snorlax to be resting all the time, but it also just forces it to have to wait to be able to attack again. This channel is partnered with Gamersubs. If you want to support my work and get great tasting drinks, you can order Gamersubs through my link in the description down below, or with code Moxie boosted at checkout for 10% off. Gamersubs is a caffeinated product that I recommend only to my 18+ viewers, but my link will send you to their caffeine-free product section just in case. Every product purchased through my link supports my channel financially, so I'd really appreciate the support. Now back to the video. I'm only including Golurk not learning Rage Fist because a lot of people seemed confused that it didn't, and I feel the need to explain why it really shouldn't learn Rage Fist. Mega Golurk was recently released to everybody in Pokemon Champions, and it is a Pokemon with an absurd attack stat. Mega Golurk has 89 HP, 159 attack, 105 defense, 105 special defense, and 55 speed. It also has access to the ability Unseen Fist, and while this has been nerfed in Pokemon Champions, as now it will only deal a quarter damage through Protect, having access to Unseen Fist and the move Rage Fist is a bit much. Rage Fist is the exclusive move of Annihilape and Primeape. Rage Fist starts off as a 50 base power move, and then for each time that the target has been hit, it will gain 50 more power, meaning that Rage Fist just gets stronger and stronger and stronger until it is just a nuke of a move. It caps out at 6 hits, meaning that it can be a 350 base power move that is stronger than Explosion, mind you. And it is a ghost type move, meaning it's super effective against ghost types, and it can hit steel and rock types for neutral damage, something that Explosion isn't able to do. There are Pokemon that resist it. The only Pokemon that resist Rage Fist are dark types and normal types, so that's kind of a huge thing going for it. Rage Fist is only given to Annihilate because Annihilate doesn't have the greatest attack stat. It's sitting at 115 and it has good bulk all around. It's kind of built around the move Rage Fist. It is the only Pokemon that can really use it without feeling absurdly broken. And even then, that's kind of pushing it. There are certain formats where Annihilate is very frustrating to deal with. Mega Golurk has a ridiculous attack stat and really good bulk. If it had access to Rage Fist, it would not only be one of the best Pokemon in the game, but it would be just by far the most difficult Pokemon to switch in on. I get that the old version of Unseen Fist plus Wicked Blow was like broken, but Wicked Blow, it would hit like it was a 120 base power move. This is just single target explosion over and over and over again, and if you protect, maybe you just get a little bit of shrapnel in you. There is a very good reason why Urshifu Rapid Strike does not learn Flip Turn. I get that it learns U-Turn, which is just as useful of a move in a lot of situations, but U-Turn is given to so many Pokemon because it is a bug type move. What does bug hit for super effective damage? Psychic, Dark, and Grass. Like, those are 3 types that are not lacking weaknesses. It's fine that the bug type can hit them, but beyond that, like, there aren't a lot of types that bug really wants to hit, and there aren't a lot of types that you really want to hit with bug type moves. And the majority of Pokemon using U-Turn are not bug types. They're flying types, fighting types, they're Incineroar, they're Pokemon that want to pivot. Having the most commonly used pivoting move in the game be a bug type attack means that it's pretty hard to make this move broken. The strongest U-Turner is Potentialmon. It's Beedrill. And no one's using Mega Beedrill these days. So that's why it's fine for Urshifu to have access to this U-Turn. Like, the hardest it's going to hit is when it's running Choice Band and it like manages to U-Turn into the Rillaboom. Rillaboom's not going to drop to that. The issue arises when you give it Flip Turn, the water type version of U-Turn. Now it has Stab on it, meaning that this is not a 60 base power pivoting move. On Urshifu Rapid Strike, it would effectively be a 90 power pivoting move, which can also be boosted by Rain. Urshifu is a very difficult Pokemon to switch in on as is due to Unseen Fist and its just absurd surging strikes. Now imagine if it could switch out and take the KO at the same time. This is effectively what we're dealing with. No, we don't have to explain it any further. Urshifu should not get Flip Turn. Another one that just makes sense but can never happen is Miraidon getting access to Rising Voltage. Now, Miraidon is a legendary Pokemon. It is arguably the strongest legendary Pokemon based off of competitive results. Its ability Hadron Engine not only sets Electric Terrain on the field, but it also gives its special attacks a passive boost equivalent to that of a Life Orb. Rising Voltage is a 70 base power electric type move that doubles in power if it's in electric terrain. This move has only been granted to Pokemon that don't automatically set electric terrain, except for Pincurchin. That one got it in Generation 8, and that's fine. It was Pincurchin. Nowadays, the only Pokemon who has access to it is like Raging Bolt, and Raging Bolt doesn't even really run it because you can't set up terrain for it consistently. It can't set up terrain for itself. If Miraidon had access to this move, it'd be throwing out a 0 drawback 140 power electric move turn after turn, scoring KOs that you didn't even know were possible. Now, Electro Drift is already a move that can KO resisted Pokemon if it has like a choice specs. I don't even want to imagine what would happen if we gave it a stronger move. So no, Miraidon should not learn Rising Voltage. Also, I do want to say, I will be turning this sort of video into like a community-based video. So if you have any Pokemon that you believe should learn a move that don't, or a Pokemon that you think should get an ability that doesn't, go ahead and comment it down below, and it might make it into the next video that we do. Okay, this next one is really fun. Dondozo should not learn Whirlpool. I get that it makes sense. It is a giant catfish. It should be able to learn Whirlpool. A ton of Pokemon learn Whirlpool, and it might not even seem like that broken of a move, and that's the doubles player coming out of all of my subscribers. You see, I'm ambidextrous. I play doubles and singles. Ooh, I can write with both hands. The right hand for when I actually want you to understand it, and the left hand for when I don't. It's all a matter of perspective as to what ambidextrous means. The point is, I play singles too, and if Dondozo got access to Whirlpool, mind you, they already gave it access to Whirlpool in Legends ZA, but I don't expect this to translate to the main series games anytime soon, or even Champions. If Dondozo got access to Whirlpool, we'd be in a world of hurt, because in singles, Dondozo is considered one of the best walls in the game, as its ability Unaware means that you cannot set up in front of Dondozo, as it will just ignore your stat changes and eat your hits. Dondozo also has incredible physical bulk. It has 150 HP, 115 defense, and while it only has 65 special defense, it can just invest more directly into that and live particular hits, and you're playing singles. It's already Switch-a-Palooza. You can just switch out into your special wall if you really need to. The point is that Dondozo is a Pokemon that really enjoys just sitting in front of Pokemon and walling them out on a lot of stall teams. If Dondozo were able to do that while also removing the ability for the opponent to switch out into a special attacker, now we have an issue, because Dondozo into physical attackers would basically just be able to take a free KO every time it came in if that Pokemon is not able to 2 or 3 hit KO Dondozo. This would also be quite a big issue for VGC, as if you're familiar with Generation 9 Regulation C, we did actually have a similar Dondozo playstyle sprout in that format, and that was Ting-Lu Dondozo. Ting-Lu was able to boost Dondozo's special defense stat effectively with its ability Vessel of Ruin, which cuts all Pokemon special attack stats, and Dondozo would sit on the field and click Yawn into the Pokemon, while Ting-Lu would click Sand Tomb, forcing them to stay in. If you didn't have a Pokemon that could deal with these two physical behemoths who also have an increased special defense stat, you're kind of in trouble. And I know what you're thinking. What if you had an electric type? Well, there's a Ting-Lu right there, and guess what? You're sand-tombed in. It's gonna Stomping Tantrum you. Good game, shake their hand, but you won't because you're really upset. If Dondozo had Whirlpool, it could kind of do this on its own. It would just be kind of a nuisance. These Dondozos would already run Yawn, Protect, Fissure, and Wave Crash. You can just drop Fissure for Whirlpool, and now you're just running a more efficient Dondozo. You're not rolling the dice for fun. Okay, why can't Terapagos learn Shell Smash? Good reason. There is a good reason for this. Terapagos is annoying. I understand it's not the strongest Pokemon ever made. I understand that if Pokemon Champions didn't come out, it wouldn't even be a thing that we talk about. It wouldn't even have its gimmick. But if you have ever played against a Terapagos team and you were not a Zamazenta player, if you were a Miraidon player, if you were any kind of special restricted team, Terapagos was really annoying. Terapagos has some pretty phenomenal stats even before it transforms from terastallizing. It has 95 HP, 95 attack, 110 defense, 105 special attack, 110 special defense, and 85 speed. Upon terastallizing, it gets 160 HP, 105 attack, 110 defense, 130 special attack, 110 special defense, and 85 speed. If Terapagos were able to double its speed and special attack with a single turn, mind you, with basically no drawback, as its ability Terra Shell would just let it eat the hit for free that turn, and then terastallize and hit you with +2 Terra Starstorm, which is unresistible, mind you, as it hits things for super effective if they Terra, and it's basically a typeless move outside of that. You are in big trouble. This is a Pokemon that is only able to be taken care of via Wide Guard, basically. Yes, there's Snarl, but have you ever heard the tale of the Covert Cloak Terapagos? Whatever Terapagos you're thinking you're facing right now, there's like 12 other Terapagos you've never heard of. Have you ever played the Miraidon plus Electric Sea Terapagos? It's not a fun Pokemon to deal with, and that's with it having to click Calm Mind or having to run the choice specs for damage. What if it could just double its stats and speed in a single turn? What if you worked at Game Freak and they fired you for this? Lots of different things to think about. Let's just not, though. Our final move that would be unbalanced if the Pokemon learned it, before we get into our balanced moves, is Tapu Lele with Expanding Force. Now, I want to let you know something. Tapu Lele is a Pokemon that made Psy-Spam feel fair, because Tapu Lele was only able to hit one Pokemon at a time. It had a 130 special attack stat, just okay physical bulk, and a fairly acceptable 95 speed stat. Tapu Lele was very easy to deal with, even if you didn't know you were going to run into it, because the tools to deal with it were just on your team anyways. Modern Psy-Spam has access to this cool new move called Expanding Force. Expanding Force basically says, hey, I'm going to hit both of these Pokemon for an absurd amount of damage just because Psychic Terrain is active. And guess what? It's not the usual Psychic Terrain boost, it's more. This has led to teams like Indeedee Sneasler just absolutely dominating Regulation H VGC in Generation 9, and even back in Generation 8, we had teams like Indeedee Hatterene being absolute menaces to deal with. Hard Trick Room Side Spam is one of the most hated archetypes in the game, as it's just kind of not a noob trap, but like a noob farmer. If you are new to the game, you are going to lose to Hard Trick Room Side Spam because you don't know what to do. If you're good at the game, it's fairly easy to play out of because you just team build and you never let yourself ever fall for not being prepared for that again, but it is a very difficult archetype to deal with. Imagine if Tapu Lele, a Pokemon that could set its own Psychic Terrain and actually had the stats to back up its damage, unlike male Indeedee, who has Expanding Force and sets up Psychic Terrain. Imagine if Tapu Lele with 130 base special attack was able to do what male Indeedee does in old formats. It would be one of the single most difficult Pokemon to deal with in the game, as not only is it a Psychic type, which can hit all Pokemon except for Dark types with Expanding Force, but it's also a Fairy type. It is effectively the inverse of what Hatterene is. Hatterene was one of the best Side Spam Pokemon in Trick Room because of its dual typing being able to hit the Dark types that it wouldn't be able to hit with its Psychic type moves. It only worked in Trick Room because of its low speed, which meant that if Trick Room ended, you were just kind of out of luck. Tapu Lele, on the other hand, doesn't need Trick Room. It doesn't even necessarily need Tailwind, it just needs a Pokemon next to it to help it eat the hits. At one point, we actually did believe that it was going to get access to Expanding Force, and people were kind of panicking. I think it was like a data mine for Pokemon Home back in 2022, but as it turns out, a lot of that data was wrong, so we were lucky enough to not have to deal with, you know, Rising Voltage Tapu Koko and Expanding Force Tapu Lele. That being said, the next Pokemon we're going to talk about is a Pokemon who should learn some moves that it just doesn't, and it was also in this data mine, and I have not recovered from this disappointment since this happened. Tapu Bulu with Grassy Glide and Spirit Break. Tapu Bulu is a Pokemon with some fairly impressive stats. It has a very high attack stat, really good physical bulk, and while it doesn't have the greatest speed and may be really weak to poison moves as a Grass Fairy type, that didn't really stop it from being viable in VGC 2017 as a Scarf Woodhammer user. That being said, it's basically been out of the job since Rillaboom has been introduced into the game, as it has a very similar attack stat, access to better tools such as U-Turn, Fake Out, and Knockoff, and has access to Grassy Glide in grassy terrain. There's just no purpose to Tapu Bulu in modern Pokemon. You would say that, oh, the reason you run Tapu Bulu is for the fairy moves, but it only gets Dazzling Gleam. It doesn't get any physical fairy moves. A lot of people might say that Tapu Bulu should be able to learn Play Rough, but I would raise you that it should actually learn Spirit Break. Spirit Break is a 75 base power fairy type move that deals physical damage and causes the opponent's special attack to be lowered by 1 stage. Tapu Bulu with an Assault Vest, Spirit Break, and Grassy Glide would be one of the best damage control Pokemon in the game, as not only would it be able to deal heavy damage with Woodhammer and Grassy Glide, but it'd be able to lower special attack stats with Spirit Break while still dealing significant damage and healing your own team with grassy terrain. There's no real reason why it doesn't learn these moves, as the argument for it being too strong with Grassy Glide is thrown out the window when you realize we have the greatest grass type of all time basically running it every day of the week in Generation 9. Okay, we have 3 more I want to get to. These are all Pokemon that should learn them as well. I want to talk about Wo-Chien with Rage Powder, and I know that I have 2 disappointing grass-type sons that I love very much that I keep advocating for, and Wo-Chien is one and Tapu Bulu is the other one. But Wo-Chien, why can't it learn Rage Powder? I get not giving it Spore or Sleep Powder because that'd be really annoying, but Rage Powder just makes sense. It is a grass type that is a support Pokemon with Snarl, Knockoff, Foul Play, all these incredible moves. It just has a really bad typing. Why not give it Rage Powder? It would allow it to be a better support Pokemon next to Pokemon like Kyogre, Raging Bolt, and all these Pokemon that want to take decreased damage, but it just doesn't. And you might say, like, well, it's because Tablets of Ruin would be way too strong on a redirector. We have Clefairy and Mousehold running around. We even have freaking, what's that thing called? Vivian? 3 other examples of Pokemon who have access to Friend Guard and redirection. If you don't know what Friend Guard is, you haven't thought about it this way, I'm sure, but it is effectively better Tablets of Ruin and better Vessel of Ruin, as it cuts the damage from all attacks to 3/4 the damage it would deal otherwise. Yeah, Wo-Chien should just get this. I don't know why it doesn't get Rage Powder. I feel like I've talked about this one a lot, so we're not going to spend a lot of time on Ampharos getting Tail Glow, but this is Ampharos. Here is his tail. It glows. He is a special attacker. Here is Xurkitree. No tail on him to be found, but look at his head. It glows. He gets tail glow. Game Freak, please address this. The final Pokemon I want to talk about who really should learn a move that it doesn't is Audino or Mega Audino. There is practically no reason why Mega Audino should not have access to Follow Me. Mega Audino is the Pokemon who has been scammed at every corner. There's no reason for it to not have access to a ton of better tools. It is a normal fairy type with 80 special attack and just good bulk, not like incredible bulk, and it hardly has an ability. Mind you, this is a Mega Pokemon. This is a Pokemon that you have to equip an item on before the match starts, saying, that's the one I'm gonna Mega Evolve, and then Mega Evolving it in the match and foregoing a Mega on any other Pokemon, basically. Why does it have the ability Healer, which in modern Pokemon only has a 50% chance to proc? This means that if your partner Pokemon gets poisoned, paralyzed, burned, falls asleep, there's a 50-50 chance that Mega Audino goes, there you go, you're fine. It used to be lower. It used to not be 50%. Now it is 50%, but you have to keep in mind, there are a lot of things in this game that are 50% that just never happen in a match, even though they probably should statistically. Audino could just sit on the field and do nothing. And when I say do nothing, I mean literally do nothing, as its highest offensive stat being 80 means that its Dazzling Gleams and its Hyper Voices will not be hitting very hard. Now, I've had many people comment on my videos that I don't understand Audino. Audino is supposed to be a Calm Mind endgame sweeper. You know what? That would make sense. However, a Calm Mind endgame sweeper does not look like this. It looks like this. Audino is a Mega Pokemon. Why is it that Audino, a Mega Pokemon, starts with 80 special attack? Let me tell you something. A Calm Mind Sweeper does not have 80 special attack. That is a sunk cost fallacy waiting to happen. You will get off all of those Calm Minds as every Pokemon around Audino gets fainted, and Audino will accomplish nothing by the end of the game because you're now playing a 4v1. If Audino had Follow Me, it would be able to Helping Hand, Follow Me, have the option to use Healer once in a while. It would not be a passive observer of its team going down as it gets ignored every turn because there's no reason to attack the 80 base special attack normal fairy type that probably isn't even invested in the special attack set because it's meant to be a support Pokemon. It needs Follow Me. It needs Follow Me because at the very least then there's a reason to use it over other Pokemon. Sorry if this video was more frustrated than anything. I'm very passionate about Pokemon movesets, and I thought that at the end, these ones made a lot of sense. And at the beginning, the Pokemon that shouldn't really learn those moves, but also should, you know, lore-wise. There's a lot of really annoying Pokemon in Pokemon, and sometimes I just get worked up thinking about it. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and again, comment down below all the Pokemon that you think should learn moves or have abilities or whatever. I do want to make this like an interactive thing with my community. It could be fun. Yeah, leave your comments down below. If you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.